I'm going to try and give you a little bit of insight into how to actually use the runes. I've already, if you've watched my other videos, shown you how to make some out of stone. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of information on how to use them in divination, in reading runes, in, I guess you could call it fortune telling if you'd like. Now, a lot of people want to know why runes as opposed to tarot and I Ching or any of the other divination systems. Well, I use runes because they speak to me. They're easier for me to use. I don't like tarot as much, simply because the imagery on the cards confuses me. The runes are very simple. The runes are very straightforward. Their meanings are interpretable in many, many different ways, so you're never going to get the same reading twice, even if the stones line up the exact same way. So today I'm going to give you a couple of layouts to use, a little bit of information on how to interpret the runes and make them understandable, so as opposed to just, symbols on rocks, it actually will mean something in a reading. So one of the things is going to be find yourself a couple of steps to get you in the proper mind space, whether that's getting out an altar cloth and unfolding it and thinking about what you need to hear, or thinking about the energies you intend to invoke. I actually got this cloth from my wife, and it's been fantastic for me. It has all 4 cardinal directions marked out through some really, really interesting different little drakes and lizards and whatnot. I set it out. Part of my ritual is to open the cloth and then turn it to where each of these dragons points to its cardinal direction. North being behind me, if you couldn't tell. North being Earth. That's how I get started. Now, I also like to keep notes and write each of my readings down. The way I've found to do this is to just get a card once I'm finished with the reading. I'll actually mark the stone, the runes in the order they come out in the reading, and write it on the business card. And then if I'm doing it for someone who is paying for the service, I will write it down and give it to them. If it's something just for me to have, I'll write it down and I'll either put it in my box or I'll put it in my wallet and I'll carry it with me, and that way if I feel that I need to reference it again, it's always there. Now, when you're drawing stones, you can draw them directly out of the bag. That's rather, really is up to you. What I like to do personally is, if I'm reading for somebody else, I like to lay out the stones and let them choose. I'm using an amethyst set today just for example. We won't actually be doing a reading, but I'm going to lay them out and give you a few examples of what they can mean. Now, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of specifics when we get into that. What I am going to do is lay them out in 3 separate reading patterns so that you can see how it is. Now, I'm going to read this right side up to me as opposed to right side up to the camera, and that way you can kind of see how it will work out. Now, when I'm doing this myself, I just simply, feel through the runes, and I'll pull one out, and I'll set it in its place. And then I'll feel the next one out without looking at them, and set it in its place. I have a tendency when I'm doing this to center them on the middle of the cloth, just because it's aesthetically more pleasing. It really has no bearing whatsoever. Now you want to set them face up so that you can see them, which means you do have to look at them so that you can set them face up. Now, I've been setting these in what I call the algaes reading. Algaes is one of the runes of drawing. It brings power into you. It's the open-armed call to the heavens for assistance and guidance. Now, this is one reading I do. It's also called the Celtic cross, because as you can see, if you look closely at the pattern of the runes, it does make a cross. And although the Celtic cross specifically doesn't have to be longer on any one end, it does look a lot like a cross. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip open my notebook here. I'm going to have you look, and this will be obviously right side up to you. The positioning is the past, which are influences and overviews of the past. This will give you kind of an indication as to what the person, especially if you're doing for somebody else, what the person is asking about, or something that has shaped their lives. 2 is one space down and one space over. That will be the overviews and influences of the present. That stone is a little more important than the past stone, but you can't read into that without understanding what the past is talking about. That brings you directly into the future. And as you'll notice, when you're reading runes, you have a tendency to read from left to right. From right to left as opposed to left to right. When you're using them as a language, you can write them from left to right, but when you're reading them as a divination tool, you'll want to go from right to left. Now, the number 3 stone, the space that the number 3 stone will go into, is going to be overviews, influences, and expectations of the future. This stone may never come to pass, but it's something more specifically to expect, look for signs that may happen to give you information as to how to overcome your personal challenge. I'm sure you've seen that number 5 space there, and we'll get to that. But what you need to do is you need to go from the past to the present to the future and those expectations thereof, and then move directly down to the very bottom. Down here at the bottom is the root or the cause of the problems you are having. Now this stone is going to give you insight as to what has been causing your problem, or what has caused you to need a rune reading in the first place. Now if it's something you're doing for fun, this is going to be very confusing, or it's going to be very enlightening. So once you've determined what this stone here in the number 4 position is trying to talk about, that's going to move you directly to how to overcome it. Now this is your personal challenge. This is the challenge that directly challenges the person asking the question or asking for help. Now, for example, if this number 5 challenge is this stone here, and this is Tewaz, this is the warrior's rune. This is all about making progress and making sure that things are moving along as they should be. We're going to go ahead and get that out of the way. But if that were the rune, that means you need to do the work, and you need to take the proper steps and keep going on your journey. That's an example. That's really not relevant here at the moment. But then once you overcome that personal challenge in space number 5, you move directly into the outcome. Now the outcome is not necessarily, an epiphany or you get exactly what you want. Oftentimes the outcome is nothing more than a change in perception or perspective, so that you won't have the number 4 problem anymore. So if your number 4 is bothering you, number 6 is going to help you once you overcome 5. Okay, so that's just simply one reading. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. Now we'll get to another reading style here in a moment. But what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to move on to the next type of reading. Now, if you have any questions as to how to determine what the stone is trying to tell you, all you really need to do is take the place that it's in and determine how that specific rune fits into that placement. Odin be with you.